is. And again, meditation is about developing understanding, and it starts with the three levels of understanding, which is the intellectual understanding of what our body and mind is and how it operates and how we live in it. Sort of, just the intellectual understanding, and then the reflective understanding when you start pondering and thinking about it, even in the beginning stages of meditation, developing discursive meditation and reflection, and then finally the deepest levels of the deep insights that bring the realizations and the stages of liberation. So anyway, coming back to the word itself, meditation, of course, this is an English word, and normally it's the Pali word, because most of the Buddhist teachings in the Theravada tradition are in the Pali language. So the word bhavana in the Pali is the way most people, is the word that is translated for meditation, because in English language, probably meditation comes the closest to trying to convey the meaning of bhavana. Now, the word bhavana is also translated into English as cultivation or development, or one of the meanings of bhavana is to cultivate or to develop, especially to develop the mind. And so the meditation practices, there are different kinds of meditation found within the Buddhist tradition. And these are all ways of cultivating or developing our mind in a wholesome, positive way. So there's, the main types of bhavana are the Metta bhavana. That means the cultivation of metta, or cultivating the thoughts and the radiating the vibrations and thoughts of loving friendliness and kindness toward ourself and all living beings. And of course, then there's the Samatha bhavana, which means the cultivation of concentration, which generally means developing the one-pointed concentration on various objects in order to gain the stages of full absorption or jhana, and then even going on toward higher states of formless jhanas. So that's called the Samatha bhavana, cultivation of concentration. And then there's the Vipassana bhavana, which means the cultivation of insight. And there are other types of bhavana too, like Asubha bhavana, cultivating the perception of the impurities of the body, or you might seeing the foul aspects of life, like seeing that the body emits a lot of odors and it's a home for worms, and there's a number of things, or the foulness of food, seeing how food, attachment to food brings its problems. And food might look nice when you see it all together on your plate, but after putting it in your mouth for 1 or 2 seconds and spit it back out, you wouldn't even feed it to your dog. So we tend to focus on the external marks or the external features of material objects, and ignore their kind of what's lying underneath the surface of them. So anyway, that's just that's a type of meditation also. But in this talk, I'm going to primarily focus on, of course, the mindfulness and the Vipassana practice, and also the practice of both the concentration and mindfulness. Now, there's a lot of talk in the teachers of meditation focus on different aspects of meditation, and some people think that you should develop concentration first and then use that to then later on develop insight. And there's others that say no, developing concentration to a high degree is not necessary in the beginning, and they they start with maybe developing mindfulness of breathing, and then paying attention to the body and developing moment-to-moment mindfulness, and then practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which we're going to talk about in the sutta study class, and then gaining concentration through that way. So these 2 forms of meditation, where you develop concentration first and then develop insight based on the concentration, is called Samadhi Pubbangama Vipassana, or concentration that precedes the Vipassana insights. And the other method is Vipassana Pubbangama Samadhi. So this is the method by which you start practicing mindfulness, and through the practice of mindfulness, you gradually suppress the hindrances and developing insights, and then and through that you gain the concentration. So in both methods, both concentration and insight need to be developed and balanced, but these are just 2 different methods depending on the temperament of individual persons. So a person might be more easily able to, without too much difficulty, develop one-pointed concentration, or choose a single object to meditate on, such as the breathing, and being able to successfully suppress the hindrances just through observation of the breathing, and attain the jhanas, and then developing insight from there. But others who may not be able to easily develop one-pointed concentration, because it takes a kind of more secluded, long-term kind of practice to develop that kind of concentration. So other people might start developing their insights and practicing basic mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, and develop moment-to-moment attention, and then gaining concentration from that, as I've already mentioned. But coming back to the word, and now meditation in English, the prefix is MEDI, midi. And it's the same prefix that you find for medicine, and it's the same prefix that you find for a mediator, or mediation, or even a medium. And what that implies is the prefix MEDI represents the middle, being in the middle. So let's say medicine stands in the middle between sickness and health. So you take medicine to try to overcome a sickness and regain your health. A mediator sits in the middle between 2 disputing, arguing parties over some matter, and tries to be the arbiter and bring peace to those disputing parties. And a medium even sort of is supposed to communicate between the what lies beyond our senses, or the departed spirits and their family members. So they're in the middle of a medium like that. And so meditation sits in the middle between our body and the mind. And it sits in the middle between the past and the future. And it sits in the middle between ignorance and wisdom. But on a very practical and beginning level, I like to interpret that word MEDI, meditation, as, again, being in the middle, and basically being in the middle of the body. Because we experience this world, our body is the outer shell, and our mind is the inner workings on the mental level. And it's very hard to see that. And in many people, the body and minds have become separated. In the beginning, when we were born and in the womb, the body and mind were more or less kind of fused together. You know, the consciousness was just feeling all the sensations in the baby developing in the womb. And even when the baby come out of the womb, its mind is primarily kind of in present moment awareness. It hasn't developed any thoughts of past or future. I've given several talks on this, that aspect, how that arose before. So anyway, the keeping the mind in the middle and centered in the body is sort of the first stage of meditation. And in the Buddhist tradition, of course, following the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or even in the Anapanasati meditation, you know, the body is, you know, used first in order to center the mind, because the body is always in the present moment. Our mind is what is always going between the past and the future. And so this body and the breathing body, is really our best connection, or really the only connection that we have to the present moment. Because until we can get our mind focused in the present moment and weaken the hindrances, then meditation won't progress very much. And so, you know, the mind in our normal state has the 5 hindrances that are always keeping the mind, blocking it from being able to focus and concentrate. So those 5 hindrances are sensual desire. That means thinking about objects of the 5 senses. What can I get, you know, in terms of what can I eat or smell, taste, touch, or even feel and think about. Mind has cravings and desires for that, so our thoughts get drawn off. Or the opposite direction, ill will and aversion, getting upset and remembering people that may have hurt you, or different you know, scenarios or memories that bring up resentment and anger and so on. And then the restlessness, just the jumpy mind that can't concentrate, worrying about this or planning that, or you know, thoughts of guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, or just basically being easily getting bored and wanting to do something else. So the mind just not being able to rest in the present moment. And then, of course, there's the drowsiness and sleepiness. And that's probably the worst of all the hindrances, is the drowsy mind. When we try to sit down to meditate, we encounter, you know, after a few minutes or so, the head will start, you know, going down, and, you know, the mind will becoming drowsy, or, you know, just daydreaming, and eventually could be, you know, winding up sleeping. And then doubts is the other hindrance. I'm going to talk about these in other talks. I've talked about them in the past. So the 5 hindrances, anyway, these are the things that we try to overcome in the initial stages of the meditation. So whether you're concentrating on the breathing or using the body, and then that is our connection to the present moment. And that's the natural state of our consciousness, actually. The natural state of the consciousness in rest is a state of present moment awareness. But normally people have never experienced that, or not very often. Or if they did, they might have went wowie wooey, but didn't understand what it was, and, you know, forgot about it. But anyway, that's the natural, uninfluenced vibration of consciousness, is present moment awareness. But those 5 hindrances are what take us out of the present moment Either if you're sleeping is one thing, but then the other four hindrances are connected with the past and future. Thinking about the past or the future and dredging up all the thoughts. So the connection to the breathing body, whether you want to choose the breathing exclusively in the beginning or the body, then that is sort of the anchor to the present moment. And the body is always in the present moment. It's always just here. And the breath is always going in and out. In the body, it's 100 or more pounds of flesh and bones. Is always just, immediately here. It's connected to all the senses in the body. And it's not very far away. So it's the easiest thing to feel. And it also represents that the present moment. So the first stage of meditation is learning how to bring the mind away from its focus in the external world or the past and the future, and bring it to get anchored and connected to the breathing body. So that's why the practice of breathing awareness is one of the more popular forms of meditation. Now, sometimes teachers will have a person maybe spend the first few minutes or longer practicing the Metta Bhavana to help weaken any ill will or resentment, especially if you just came in before your meditation, you had an argument with somebody or, some other memory, or you've been angry or something, or, to try to let go of any thoughts of ill will so that, the mind can settle down more easily. And then to begin practicing, breathing awareness or the Anapanasati. But even before that, meditation really is about, it happens between the brain and the nervous system. That means most of our meditation depends on our senses being alert and feeling the sensations coming through the senses, even our breathing. When you feel your breathing, you're feeling the expanding and contracting of your abdomen or chest, or you're feeling the sensation of the air going through the nostrils. And so it requires you to be alert and awake to feel that. So keeping the posture straight is important in the practice of the meditation. And even these are the Buddha's first instructions, whether the Anapanasati Sutta, the Kayagata Sati Sutta, or the Satipatthana Sutta, all the sutras describing the practice of meditation, the instructions are to sit down and cross the legs and keep the back and the head straight. Now, there's a purpose for that, and especially keeping the spinal column straight, because basically meditation is 50% physical and 50% mental. And what I mean by that is that having a good circulation in the body and having a strong body, that means you'll be able to sit for long periods of time, so that the back muscles are strong enough to hold the back up straight, the neck muscles are strong enough to prevent the head from slouching down like that. So in order to sit straight, that frees up the whole nervous system energy. And that's why yoga actually is a very good supplement and a complementary practice to the actual concentrating the mind. So the practices of yoga help to keep the body, the joints flexible, and especially the spinal column. because the spinal column is where all the major nerves of the body are located along the right and left side of the spinal column. And if you're slouching down like that, it's like crimping a water hose. You impede the flow of water, like through a garden hose. And when you straighten out the garden hose and the water flows through. So the same way, when we're sitting straight, keeping the head up, then all that nervous system energy is flowing in an optimal way, allowing for the most alert state of the body. And also less pain, because much of the pain you experience in meditation is from the body slouching. And normally there's gravity that's always pulling the body down towards the earth. And when you sit to meditate, the first thing that happens is gravity grabs the chin and pulls it down. And because our neck muscles are not strong enough to keep the head up, or we're simply not mindful of the head, we're not mindful of the body, we don't notice it. And before we know it, we catch ourselves with the chin halfway down to your chest, or maybe even worse. And after some minutes, you're going to get an ache in your neck, or you're going to get an ache in your shoulders or your spine because of that unusual pressure. And when the head goes down, it causes the spine to slouch, and that compresses your internal organs, your stomach and kidneys and liver and so on, impeding blood flow, and also can cause other types of discomforts or pain. So I'm just saying that to illustrate the importance of the posture, and the Buddha also pointed that out, or he wouldn't have mentioned that point of keeping the body erect. And even Mahamoggallana, who was one of the Buddha's chief disciples and expert meditator, and even had psychic powers, he also sometimes, the Buddha saw him meditating with his head slouched down, and he said, "Mahamoggallana, straighten up, wake up." So even advanced meditators sometimes can, if you lose your mindfulness for more than a couple of seconds, you can notice the head going back, because it's a strong habit. I'm just mentioning that because, again, to underscore that relationship between the mind and the body, and that the meditation is 50% physical and 50% mental. And the physical part is learning how to keep the body and the spine and the head in a straight line, and also the joints in circulation. So the more flexible you are, like in yoga exercise, many of them are designed at loosening up the joints in order to get the electrical energy of the body, and even the blood flowing out to all the remote nooks and crannies and cells of the body in order to keep them charged up, so that the body feels in a more awake, alert state. So that's important to understand about meditation, because a lot of people fight the meditation because of the body. And they don't get very far in their meditation because of either the body's energy is not flowing right, or even if their lungs are clogged up and they don't have a ability to take deep, slow breaths, then also the body will suffer on account of that, and you're continually fighting, trying to stay awake, or being restless about the various aches and pains coming in, and your meditation won't progress very well. So even with the fact that before starting to concentrate your mind is to understand that relationship, and then that's why so many meditators now, and the Westerners, including myself, practiced yoga, and also Tai Chi and Qigong are also two types of practices that also help the body maintain a good level of energy. And so we don't know if the Buddha himself actually practiced those things, but nevertheless, the Buddha did recommend having good bodily health too. That's a blessing to be healthy in body and mind. So, so coming back to the practice of the, getting the mind centered in the body. So by taking a few deep, slow breaths in the beginning, when you first sit to meditate, is a good way, the way that I always lead people into meditation, or to help feel the breathing, whether you're going to concentrate on the breathing here or to feel the expanding and contracting sensations of your abdomen, rib cage, or chest, as a point to observe the breathing. And then you mindfully breathe in and you mindfully breathe out. And you focus your attention in one of those two places, either at the, in or around the tip of the nose or nostrils, or the rising or the expanding and contracting sensations of the abdomen, the rib cage or chest. Because when you breathe, that's what you feel. The rib cage expands and contracts, and so you can feel, since you can even feel the touch of the clothing rubbing against the skin of your belly, rib cage, or chest. And these are what remind you that you're breathing. So, and to use that, and thus occurring in the present moment. And so you can also, counting the breaths from 1 to 10 is a very good beginner's practice, or even for any period of meditation. Even people who've been meditating a long time, they can also, sometimes they think that they're beyond counting and they start to meditate, but then they find themselves so easily lost in their thoughts. So even to come back and to be able to follow, count the breaths from 1 to 10 without losing your count. If you can count the breaths from 1 to 10 without losing your count, that's a pretty good beginning goal in itself, or what I would would regard as the first stage of any kind of concentration. And if you can't focus and count your breaths from 1 to 10 without falling asleep, or without the other hindrances coming in, or losing your count, then I don't think you're going to gain success in any other kind of meditation. So that's just kind of a step-by-step procedure that a good procedure one can follow. First one, sitting down, maybe even doing some stretches as we do each time of our class here, and then sit down and check the posture. Take some deep breaths and then counting the breaths. And by the time you've done all that, then you're at the threshold of meditation. You're in the middle already. That means the mind has become grounded and centered in the middle. If you're able to count the breaths from 1 to 10 without getting lost, that means your mind is pretty much staying there in the center of the body. Again, whether you're feeling the sensations of expanding or contracting, or you're feeling sensations here, that's still pretty much there in the center of the body up front. And then along with that, so that's the first stage of meditation, is hopefully weakening the hindrances. But while you're doing that, you have to be mindful of the hindrances, because even though the reason why you have trouble concentrating is because the hindrances are still strong. And one of the biggest ones is the wandering mind. The mind just wandering to various thoughts, getting easily distracted. And the reason why the mind, we're not able to see our thoughts. The reason why people get lost in their thoughts, because they don't see them coming, because they're thinking about, they're lost in some other thoughts, or they're half asleep. Our thoughts, basically, they arise from the deeper levels of the unconscious mind. Let's say if you're trying to concentrate, and then just a memory pops up from this morning or yesterday or last week or 10 years ago, and your memories just randomly pop up into the mind, but they come up very cleverly. They're very clever, and they come up very subtly, but because we're distracted in other thoughts or we're half asleep, we don't see the thoughts rising up because we're not really grounded in the body. We're not concentrated enough on the breathing. So we don't see them coming, and the thoughts come up and they kind of just take over our whole head and brain in a cloud of thoughts. And 2 or 3 minutes later, we oh my gosh, I'm lost in thought. Oh, where were they counting? Oh, 2, 3, and we get upset. So anyway, so the meditation practice requires the mindfulness. So the mindfulness is really important. It's not just concentration, but it's being alert also. And that's why, both concentration and mindfulness have to be balanced, even in the beginning. Because it's not being mindful of the hindrances is why you can't attain one-pointed concentration. So being mindful of the hindrances is actually more important than concentration in the beginning. Because if you're not mindful, you won't gain concentration. But if you're mindful of the hindrances and apply the proper antidotes and the right effort, then you overcome the hindrance, you can let go of it, and you can stay connected to your object of meditation. So actually you start, let's say, with watching the breath, but at the same time, you're training yourself to be alert for the hindrances arising or the wandering thoughts. And the quicker you can notice them, then the longer you'll be able to come back and stay with the breathing. So you notice that you're sleepy, for example, and then you straighten up the posture, take a deep breath, come back to the breathing. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you could wind up like this for several minutes or longer, totally lost, not even in this world. So that's the importance of the mindfulness, is that the mindfulness and the concentration have to be balanced. And that's why the mindfulness of the body is also very important. And some people use the body itself, because people are different. The temperaments, people's minds are different. Some people may find it very difficult to just watch the breath, because it's usually very subtle, and there's not much stimulation there with the breathing. And people's mind get bored very easily too. And so the mind will wander. Or if it's not getting as fast as the results that it thinks it was, then it may wander, or it can be monotonous and cause the mind to go to sleep. So other people may find mindfulness of the body itself even better object, because it's more immediate. It's heavier. The body weighs 100+ pounds. And so you can take contact points of the body, like where your buttocks press your seat, where the feet touch the ground, or however they are bent underneath the body. You can feel where the hands and fingers are touching together. You can feel, the straight back. You can feel the head balanced on top of the neck. So you can take even 4 or 5 different, what are called touch points of the body, and let the mind kind of float from point to point. Let's say, feeling the buttocks pressing the seat, and maybe for 10 or 15 seconds, try to hold the mind there to feel some sensation. And then switch to feeling your feet or toes. And try to feel some sensation there for 10 or 15 seconds or longer too. And then feel your hands. Feel the shoulders. And if you notice tension in the shoulders, relax the shoulders. And of course, the breathing is there too in the middle. You might feel the expanding and contracting of the breathing there in the center of the body. And then feel the head balanced on top. So like that, you could take a minute or so, kind of going from those points. It's what I call floating awareness, floating attention. It's like a butterfly landing on one flower and then flying to another one. But it's still right there in the body. It's still right in front. It's up front. It's not very far away. It's right there in front of you. But it gives a little bit of variation for the mind, because there's different sensations, and it lets the mind a little bit active. But you still gain a concentration, because the mind isn't wandering to the past or future. It's still, all those sensations that you're feeling are the sensations in the present moment. And it's sort of like training a wild dog. Let's say if you have a wild dog and you put a short chain around its neck and tie it to a post or a tree, then the dog will run and try to get away from that. And, it'll reach the end of the rope or chain and, get stopped. And then run again and get stopped, get pulled back. And, could even damage the neck. So instead, you give the dog a little bit longer leash, maybe to run out 10 feet or so. But, he may bark once or twice, but he won't be able to bite the mailman. So he may run out, but he reaches the end of that leash and gets stopped in a more gentle way, as opposed to just only a one or 2 foot rope. Then he'll come back to the post and might go out again, but then gradually he gets tired and he'll sit down by the post. So in the same way, this moving the attention from several different spots in the body, it's still concentration. It's not necessarily one-pointed concentration, but no one's going to get one-pointed concentration right away. And most people, it takes them months or years, even in a secluded retreat, to gain proficiency and one-pointed concentration, where they keep their mind just focused on one tiny object. That's not the normal habit of the mind. So anyway, but these are different practices for different people, and people can switch between them to feel what works for you. So if you get success with practicing just one-pointed concentration with the breathing, fine and dandy. But if you can't, you get them frustrated, you can try this attention to the body, which is the second phase of meditation after getting grounded and centered. And after moving your attention through the body in different places, you're also developing mindfulness, because if you notice the head going down, you can mindfully bring it back up. If you notice the mind wandering to thoughts, you can be alert. It's thinking, coming back. And so the mind gradually stays more kind of centered. And then you can just even feel the whole body. And then you will feel the breathing much easier. Then if you want to go back to focusing on the breathing, it will be much easier to do that, because you've already weakened the hindrances through practice of the mindfulness of the body. And then if you do want to come back and gain a deeper concentration, you can do that also. And it'll be more probably easier to do that. But again, these are just what we would call different strokes for different folks. That means not everyone is the same. And depending on a person's past or the way they've learned various things in the past, the one or these different ways are offered for that. So some teachers say, oh, you have to practice only this technique. And if the person doesn't make success with it, they might get discouraged. Okay, there's something else you can try. So like that within the teachings of meditation, with the Buddhist tradition, as I've already mentioned, there are these other kind of contemplations. Or if you have a lot of anger come in your mind, you could just temporarily leave the body and breathing and focus on metta. Send out that person you're angry with. Send out thoughts of metta. That person might have got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning or had an argument with their roommate or spouse, and so don't be too hard on them, and maybe try to curb that outgoing anger, mitigate it, and let go. Send them thoughts. May that person be well and happy. May they be free from the problems and suffering. So like that, and then if you applying the in my previous talks or sutta class, we talked about dealing with the distracting thoughts. So why even in this beginning phases of meditation, whether you're practicing, focusing, developing concentration on the breathing or within the body, then you apply those removal, overcoming the distractive thoughts, the hindrances too. But in all cases, it requires mindfulness. So you're developing mindfulness and concentration at the same time. So concentration is keeping the mind on the breathing, for example, but you have to have a reserve in the background to notice where the head is drooping down, where the spine is slouching, where the mind is wandering, or the anger is arising in the mind. So you have to be mindful to note the hindrance, apply the antidote, and then come back to your main object of meditation. In that way, the mindfulness helps strengthen your concentration, and the improved concentration strengthens that alertness of the mind. That means strengthens your mindfulness. So this is how the two work together, and that relationship continues throughout the whole process of meditation, by and large. So that's why I wanted to basically, cover in this first, in this talk about meditation, especially for those who might not have maybe just learning meditation, or for those as a reminder about some of these sort of basics in order to reestablish a good foundation for the deepening of meditation. Because really, meditation, being the core, the heart of the practice of the Dhamma, and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, for most people, it's going to be a lifelong process that continues to get better and better if they establish a good foundation. So it's about establishing a good foundation and understanding the things that affect meditation and what our body and mind is. So that's where, the right view, we've had one or two talks, sutta study about right view, and different aspects of right view and how to reflect, to develop your reflective awareness as well. Now, on the Wednesday sutta class this week, Wednesday evening, I'm going to be covering the Kayagata Sati Sutta, which is the mindfulness of the body sutta. And it's number 119 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and hopefully by And tomorrow I will send out a link where you can read that sutta, and maybe maybe Prashant, my Zoom manager, might get it up on the shared screen to be able to follow it along with you. But I'll put a link where you can see that sutta as well. And then in next week's Dhamma talk, we'll also continue on in developing the meditation practice. So if you've written any questions, if any questions came up based on anything I just talked about, you can write them down in the chat, and then we'll see. We can spend a few minutes answering any questions that you might have. And then we'll have a couple minutes break as we had before, come back to a few stretches, and then have a meditation practice. Okay, so Prashant, you have the chat set up there? I don't see them here.
Yes, Bhante, the chat is there, but somebody hasn't put anything on the chat yet. Any questions on the chat yet?
They might have been listening and forgot to write something down. Anyway, if a question comes up, you can write it down. So this one question is how to manage pain, sleepiness of the legs during meditation. Well, pain and like if your legs falling asleep, usually that's because of poor circulation, or you're bending your legs in a way that it may be oppressing a nerve or blood vessel, restricting the flow of blood, or because of the unusual sitting position, people are not used to it. The muscle tissue and bones are pressing together. So you have to develop endurance, or doing some exercise before helps, especially yoga exercise. So if you do a few stretches, leg stretches, and especially some spinal flexing and so on, and even the ones that I'll lead you through in a few minutes, what we've done before. Those are not so much for the legs, but a little bit. Anyway, you can hopefully relieve or reduce the amount of pain. Otherwise, you build up a tolerance too. And not all pain is necessarily bad, and you can't escape from all pain. Even I've been meditating for 45 years, and the pain still may come up, but the mind doesn't pay much attention to them anymore. The sensations are there in the background, but it doesn't deflect from the ability to hold your focus of attention in the state of awareness or on your object of focus. So learning how to gradually endure the pain before changing the posture, try to endure it for 1 minute longer each time when the pain comes up. Or if your legs and feet have gone asleep, try wiggling your toes right there while you're sitting. Wiggle the toes. That may help to bring more blood down into the feet and relieve that. Or you might adjust a little bit if you have to adjust your foot or leg. If it's pressing or pinching on something else, you can adjust it and then come back to the meditation. So these are a few things you can try to do. The next question was the meditation regarding food. And is there a sutra addressing it? I don't know if there's any specific suttas there. Of course, it's mentioned moderation in food is one thing. And seeing food as a medicine, like actually the monks before they eat, they're supposed to reflect, I eat this food mindfully, not for enjoyment or to make the body beautiful or to gain strong muscles. but seeing it as a medicine just to keep the body healthy enough to ward off hunger and to hopefully, and keep the immune system up to snuff, so you can remain fairly healthy, but not to abuse the food. And so there's some other practices that you can do. Normally we just focus, as I mentioned before, on the beautiful aspects of the food. Oh, what a nice smell. Yeah, such a nice smell. And or how beautiful it looks. Okay, well, stick the food in your mouth for just 10 seconds only, or even 5 seconds, and put it out on your plate, and then look at it and smell it. You won't want to. You'll say, yeah, get it out of here. So that's one method you can use to see how superficial our attachment is to food. It only looks good there on the plate, but if you don't refrigerate it after leftovers, it gets spoiled quickly. Or again, as soon as it touches this body, it loses its beautiful or appetizing aspects. So these are methods that have been traditionally used for doing that. But I'd have to look it up to find some specific sutta. They're just mentioned, especially with monks, in Buddha's instruction for monks, because they have a lot of rules concerning food and so on. But basically, it's also being aware of being addicted to the food or to the taste, and it causes a lot of suffering for people. Okay, so I think that's, I don't see any other questions have come up. So we'll go ahead and now, for those who, if it's not too late for you, or if you're over in Germany or India or Sri Lanka, it's about in the middle of the night. So anyway, if you want to stay for the yoga, then we'll go ahead and stand up, find a place to do a few stretches. Again, we do it for the purpose of opening, get the energy of the body flowing a bit, and taking some deep, slow breaths, hopefully, and helping to get grounded and centered in the body. So when you sit down, you're almost meditating already. Mindfully come back to your seat and get into your meditation position. If you're sitting on the floor or if you're sitting in a chair. If you're sitting in a chair, try to keep both feet flat on the floor. And try to sit on the front edge of the seat, not leaning back on the seat back. Kind of just arch the lower spine inward, try to feel the natural inward curve of the lower spine. Actually, I'm going to turn my video off now so you don't be tempted to want to look up at me meditating, keeping your eyes closed, focused inside. Just the hands. First of all, just focus the attention down where the buttocks and feet press the floor underneath. First, the buttocks, just feel that weight of the body presses the buttocks on the seat. Feel that solid contact, some sensation of pressure, hardness. Then feel your feet and toes, how they're tucked underneath, where they touch each other, the floor. See if you can notice some tingling sensation in your toes, a pulse of blood in your feet. And feel your hands and fingers. And feel the subtle pulse of blood in your fingers, the warmth in the palm. It's like looking through a magnifying glass or a microscope. Sort of isolate these body parts in the mind's eye. That's concentration. If you feel some sensation, that's the mindfulness. Then just try to feel a few different places where the clothing touches the body, like your shoulders, or chest, or arm. Feel those tactile sensations where the clothing rubs the skin. Maybe with a few breaths, you feel that clothing touching the skin of the chest, stomach. Then feel the head balanced on top of the neck. I'm going to try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips. So if you can, just the whole head and back, kind of gently kind of move it backwards a little bit until you feel like you were tipped backwards. But just come forward just a fraction of an inch so it doesn't feel strange. Just try to hold that straight position in the mind's eye. Imagining a straight line from the top of your head down through the spinal column to the base of the spine. Try to hold that image of the body in the mind's eye, the sitting body. Feel some sensations on your face, like where your lips touch together. Or your eyes. And just understand that the sitting body, this is the meditation room. Even the external body, finding the door of the laboratory, sitting, sitting. Then begin taking a few more deep, slow breaths, like we did in the yoga. Or feel the exaggerated expanding and contracting movements of your abdomen, rib cage, bringing the air into the upper chest. Feel that expansion of the upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 3 or 4 seconds if you can. Imagine or feel that oxygenated blood, the oxygen getting into the bloodstream, and on the out breath, imagine that oxygenated blood being carried out to all cells and tissues of the body, bathing them with relaxing, healing, oxygenated life force. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, thinking like this to yourself. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Okay. Continue to take some deeper breaths if you can. We're going to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to try to gain a more precise concentration. Still keep the attention focused in the middle of the body. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Hold the air in a couple of seconds. On the contracting out breath, also count 1. Next expanding in breath, count 2. Out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath,